Hello, welcome back to Saturn Sirens. Today we're going to start a series called How to Interpret Your Birth Chart, and today we're going to focus on the first house. So take it away, Mary.
Hi, guys. So let's talk about the ascendant in astrology, also called your rising or rising sign, and how it ties into the first house. So, the ascendant is the most personal part of your chart, and it's the most you out of everything in the chart because it's based on the minute that you're born. So, it's very precise and it changes every 2 to 3 minutes, I believe, to a new degree. And it basically explains your overview of life, or the lens that you perceive life through, is what I like to call it. So it's the way you view the world, or the flavor that you view the world, if that even makes sense, but it also represents how you look. Your physical body, especially your face, is shown in the first house. The first house is ruled by Aries in astrology, so Aries rules the head. Yes, each sign is associated with a different body part. So Aries is the head. So the first house can show your face, your physical appearance, also your body. So it says a lot about you, and it also kind of represents how you act. Some astrologers think the first house is the mask that we wear, but I don't really think it's the mask. I think it's a lot deeper than that. The mask kind of implies that it's like a fake type of energy,
Right?
but it's deeper than that. I mean, what do you think? I think it's really who you are.
Um, I think like the final straw of me believing in astrology was when I Googled what a Sagittarius rising was like, because I found this article and it listed like the good things about Sagittarius risings and the negative things. And especially all the negative things, I was like, this is every criticism I've ever been given in my
That's
life.
so funny. What could possibly be negative about Sagittarius risings? I feel like
I know.
positive.
Well, we're dogmatic about our beliefs and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's kind of cute. I don't know. I think
Some people have problems with it.
you want to talk about negative rising signs? Try being a Virgo rising. We have so many negative stereotypes. We're critical, judgmental, analytical, hypochondriacs. You name it, we get called it as a Virgo rising. But I definitely relate to my rising sign. Not gonna
Yeah.
lie. I also have my South Node in the first house, and those are the qualities that you're kind of overdeveloped in. So I feel like I am the Virgo of all Virgos when it comes to that. And I've really had to work hard to embody my North Node more, which is in the seventh house.
Right.
So I feel like I have a pretty deep understanding about the first house, and I think it has to do with me having my South Node there. I
Good
like to
point.
call the first house like it's like the glasses that you wear.
Mm.
And it's the lens that you perceive life through, and it's your view of life, your take on it. It also represents how you show up in the world, and what you're really good at, because it's so natural and it's an intrinsic part of you with the rising sign traits. And also, the degree that your rising sign is in says a lot about you too, because most people have a completely different sign ruling that degree. For example, I'm a Virgo rising at a Scorpio degree.
Mm.
Definitely relate to Scorpio rising. What's your degree? Isn't it the
29 degrees.
anaretic degree? So that's the 29th degree in astrology. It's a super critical degree, and it's a finality. So there's this energy of like you want to move on to the next sign, but you just can't. And you're like kind of stuck and tired almost. You've mastered all the traits of that sign, on which almost too much so. So, kind of like what just happened to me. If you're like a 29-degree Virgo rising, you can kind of get stuck when it comes to the way you communicate. Um, it's like more of a tired type of energy, I feel like. At least that's how it works with the planets. So I'm curious to know your take on the 29th degree with your rising, and how that, like, how do you feel that?
I don't want to be a Capricorn rising. So
blame
because I
you.
already am a Capricorn
I
sun
don't
in
blame you.
Mercury.
It's Sagittarius, it's like sandwiched between two of the most difficult signs, like Scorpio and Capricorn. And
Right.
like I would want to stay a Capricorn, a Sagittarius forever. And I maybe that's how it manifests for you, is you just want to stay at the 29th degree forever.
Yeah, like I have all my personal planets in the most, I don't know, harsh signs like Capricorn, Scorpio, Virgo. So I like the Sagittarius energy. I like prefer to be in that energy.
Well, especially with Jupiter in your first house.
Right. So it's like a triple whammy because I have Sagittarius in my first house on my ascendant at the 29th degree, meaning I'm like the fullness of that sign. And then also I have Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius in the first house in Sagittarius. So that's like, I feel like a triple whammy of Sagittarius energy.
Yeah, at the Sagittarius decan, right? And but the 29th degree is a Leo degree too, which I
Yes.
complements the Sagittarius for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I am very creative and I like the spotlight and I feel a little Leo-y.
I feel like from, receiving your energy or that perspective, you come off just like super happy and like a good-hearted person, and you make people want to be around you, which is very much Sagittarius rising, Jupiter in the first house type of energy. It usually gives you good morals and good character because that's what Jupiter rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about truth, wisdom, and the big picture in life, generosity, abundance, and having like an open-minded type of approach to life with Jupiter. So whatever planet you have in your first house completely takes over your identity. It even overpowers the sign that your rising is in. So in your case, it's the ruler of Sagittarius. So it just,
Right.
like you said, is like a double or triple dose of the rising sign. But let's say you're like a Scorpio rising and you have Neptune in the first house. You're going to feel more like a Pisces rising
Right.
than Scorpio rising because the planet completely overpowers whatever sign is in your first house. And it becomes such an integral part of your identity that you almost don't even feel it because it's just part of your like habitual behaviors almost. So, like with Neptune there, you can have a hard time just seeing yourself clearly or how you even come off to other people. People can project their ideal of you onto you, and there's a lot of confusion when it comes to your self image if it's making difficult aspects. If it's making good aspects, then you get the better traits of Neptune where you're very intuitive, very empathetic, compassionate, and you really see the higher vibration of Neptune, which is amazing.
I feel
Um,
like specifically for a Scorpio rising, they would like to have Neptune in the first house because they're very private and they don't really want to be known by too many people. So I feel like they would like to have Neptune in there just to like give them that air of mystery.
yeah, it definitely gives another layer, adds a deeper layer of mystery that I feel the Scorpio rising would really appreciate too.
It would
And
probably also soften their personality.
yeah, I was just going to say it softens that intensity of the Scorpio rising, that intensity that they give off. It just makes it more ethereal and kind of like a smoldery, dreamy type of vibe to them for sure.
Yeah, because my mom, she is a Scorpio rising with Neptune in the first house, and I don't really see, I mean, I definitely see her as a Scorpio rising, but she's very kind. She's very sweet. She's
Yeah,
not that intense.
it's like Pisces too, Pisces energy
Yes,
as well for sure.
right.
See that, and lots of people who come to me for readings are Scorpio risings with Scorpio Neptune in the first house, or even Sagittarius rising with Sagittarius Neptune in the first house. I think it works better for Scorpio
Mm-hmm.
because Sagittarius is so obsessed with truth and seeking truth that Neptune kind of is difficult to handle in Sagittarius because it blurs everything.
Wow, yeah.
It could be hard to like know what's real and what isn't, basically.
So, what would an Aries rising person be like?
So the Aries rising has like a very straightforward type of approach to life. They're usually youthful, full of vitality, energetic, and they're not really, they don't get stuck in their thoughts. They know what they want and they take action to get what they want. So they're very straightforward.
Hmm.
And simply because the first house is ruled by Aries, so they have like a very fresh perspective of life where they see all the possibilities and all of the houses in the chart are ruled by their sign, the sign that they're meant to be ruled by. So they've got Aquarius in the 11th house, they've got Cancer in the 4th house. It's a very fortunate rising sign to have, actually, but it's also the rarest rising sign to have. So you don't really meet too many of them.
You know what? I heard that Aries risings and Pisces risings were the most rare, and I feel like on TikTok, I've gotten a lot of Aries risings, like talked to a lot of them, which I was surprised about because I know they're very rare, but I haven't come across a lot of Pisces risings.
Yeah, neither have I. I would say both of those are definitely the rarest. So is Aquarius rising, but I have done readings for quite a few Aquarius risings, so maybe it's not as rare as I think. However, Pisces rising and Aries risings, I rarely do readings for, so it's
I hear
definitely.
they have like the like shortest time like for you to be one of those signs because it's about a 2 hour increment for most of the signs. I hear it's shorter for
Well, that
Aries and
makes sense
Pisces.
why it would be more rare.
Right.
I always wonder if their life is more interesting or just kind of very predictable because of the fact that all of the houses are in domicile. I
Right.
kind of, I'm a Virgo rising, so that kind of sounds amazing to me. Just the organization of it and the
Right.
itself, I'm just like, "Ooh, this is so pleasing to analyze." But who knows how they really feel? I do know one Aries rising. However, she's a Pisces stellium in the 12th house. So
Um
that kind of throws it all off. Because the 12th house and the first house could not possibly be more different from each other, I would say. Out of all the houses, those two houses are very, very different and kind of like Pisces and Aries energy. They're very different. So one is a finality area of life, and the other is the start or the spark of life.
I think it's interesting how like Aries risings, but just fire risings in general, all of the houses are ruled by the same element that it is naturally ruled by.
Yeah, exactly. So the fifth house and the ninth house, you mean?
Like all the houses, like the first house is naturally ruled by Aries, but since I have a Sagittarius rising, it's still
Yeah.
fire ruled. Whereas the second house is naturally ruled by Taurus, but I have Capricorn there. So it's still ruled by an earth sign. And then my third house is ruled by Aquarius, which is naturally ruled by Gemini, which is an air sign. And it just goes down to the 12 houses.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. Like they'd all have fire signs in the fire houses.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yep.
you're a fire rising, and everything else would be also. That's pretty cool. That's probably why I my three favorite rising signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius because, like you said, as an astrologer, we would know, and it's a lot easier in that area of life when the energy kind of flows with the natural current of that area of life in a sense.
Right.
So you want to have firehouses or fire signs in the firehouses. It just makes that area of life easier, and the same with the water houses, and so on and so forth. So, for myself being an earth rising, It's kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of weird having fire signs and the water houses. Those two elements
Right.
are very different. And I think that the way that that manifests is um, it can be hard to show vulnerable emotions. They can come out as anger or sometimes even escapism, especially like having Sagittarius in my fourth house. I remember as a child and really most of my life just completely not being able to be at home and not being able to just stay put at home for sure. Because Sagittarius is like the explorer of the zodiac. So having
Right.
that area of life that rules your actual physical home makes it really difficult to become a homebody, especially when you really need to.
Mhm. Yeah, I always think about that, how, like, all of my water houses are ruled by water signs, like, how does that affect me? How would it be if it was different?
I think it would still be pretty easy.
It's all
Um,
you would know.
Yeah, it's all you would know, exactly. So, and that's another thing with the rising sign. It's all you know. And when you meet somebody who has the same rising sign as you, especially if it's like a very close degree, it's pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Because you would think you would have like the same life, but not really.
Mm-mm.
Like my husband and I, he's 2 degrees away from me. I'm 8 Virgo and he's 10 Virgo, and most of our personal planets are in the same signs, but our lives couldn't have possibly been more different. We both have Sagittarius IC, and I lived all over the world, and he's never left his birthplace. So he did move a lot, well, like house wise, but in the same area. So our lives were very different. And that just goes to show that, every chart is unique. And no matter how similar one is to the other, you have a completely different human experience because we all have free will.
My coworker, she's in my new coworker. I just did her chart and she is a Sagittarius rising, but she's a Gemini sun and Aquarius moon. So she doesn't really have water in her chart. And I don't really have air in my chart. So even though we're both really outgoing and like smiley and nice, like I can just tell there's that difference because I have a lot more earth and water than she does.
Yeah, as somebody who doesn't have water or fire, I totally get it. But sometimes you can overcompensate for the elements that you don't have. So like if you don't have water, you can overcompensate by being overly emotional or too attached to your emotions. And if you don't have air, you can become just too intellectual and constantly insist on living in your head. So it's funny how that works because you would think that if you don't have an element, you just wouldn't embody that element. But I've seen that a lot where you can overcompensate.
I feel like even though I have my fire rising, and that is very prevalent in my personality, I'm attracted to fire signs because I don't have a lot of fire in my chart otherwise.
Yeah, you naturally attract them to you as well because you attract the elements that you're missing.
Right.
It's like that yin and yang. So I'm always attracting water signs constantly, especially water moons and just water dominant people because I lack water in my chart. But I've grown to kind of like it. I feel like emotions are they can be pretty intense, especially in women, because of the cycles we go through with our bodies and all of that. And I kind of like not having water signs now, but before, when I just had started getting into astrology and I realized I had no water in my chart, I kind of felt like there was something wrong with me. I was like,
Hmm.
well, wouldn't I have water signs? And this kind of makes sense as to why people always tell me that I'm super cold or whatever, even though I feel like I'm not. I probably come off that way. So when you lack an element, you come off. Other people can feel that from you, but you don't necessarily feel like you lack that element because, like I said, you can overcompensate for it.
Yeah, like I don't feel like I don't have air in my chart.
I really kind of don't feel that way from you either, but I think it's because Sagittarius and Jupiter is the air sign of the fire signs in a
Right.
way, because it rules over knowledge and the ninth house, which is fundamentally an airy house. I mean, beliefs and philosophies, and those are all airy topics.
And we've talked about this in a previous episode, but Aquarius rules my third house, which is how I think and how I communicate. So that is the most airy house of all the
Yeah,
houses.
yeah. So, and especially the air signs in general, plus Sagittarius out of all the fire signs, usually are attracted to people that they like how they think, or
Mm-hmm.
they want somebody that's mentally compatible with them. So I think that's also why we get along so well, because you
Mm-hmm.
have Aquarius in your third house. We kind of think in a very similar way
Yep, for sure.
because I'm an Aquarius Mercury.
So, what about a Taurus rising?
Taurus rising, it's a fortunate rising sign. A lot of the ones that I know are super good looking, just kind of genetically blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, but many of them. They're attractive. I mean, they're ruled by Venus.
Right.
Same with Libra risings, but Taurus rising, we're still pretty close to Aries. So I feel like they have much easier lives than Libra risings, because with Libra, the entire chart is reversed and they seek astrology readings the most. So I think that's why.
Yeah.
With Taurus risings, they're more earthy, sensual, good with money, very stable, and they have this energy to them that's unmistakable. And I compare it to like green pastures where
Mm-hmm.
they're like super calming aura,
They're so soothing to be around.
very soothing, and it feels good to be around them in a way that kind of calms your nervous system.
Yeah, I,
So
I agree totally.
my sister is a Taurus rising, and I've known many of them, and I usually really like them, especially since I'm a Virgo rising. So they're very compatible with my rising sign, and that's also one thing you want to look at when it comes to the first house, is being compatible with the rising sign, or at least with whatever the angles are in your chart. So although you're a Sagittarius rising and I'm a Virgo rising, I have a Sagittarius IC.
Mm-hmm.
So, the angles are the most personal part of your chart, and they're you. So they're the most you than the planets ever will be. And definitely, like when it comes to compatibility, that matters, I would say.
Right.
So I definitely like Taurus risings. And let's talk a little bit about the ruler of the rising sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key planet that affects you, wherever it transits, like currently in your chart, and also what it's doing in your chart and the aspects that it's making, the sign that it's in, and the area of life that it's in is where you kind of spend most of your time. And that area of life is like a fundamental area of life for you. So for me, I'm a Virgo rising ruled by Mercury, which is in the sixth house, also ruled by Virgo, but it's an Aquarius, which is like a very different type of energy. So that's what makes us so complex too, and
Mm-hmm.
also why you don't really feel like your rising sign sometimes. Whereas for you, the ruler of your rising sign is in your first house.
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if your sun or your moon are making like a difficult aspect to your rising sign, that kind of can give you an identity crisis at some point in your life where you realize that you don't really come off the way that you think you do. And you just gain this self awareness. And eventually you just embrace your complexity and it works for you. But before that, it can kind of cause an identity crisis. And I went through that as well because of my Aquarius and Virgo. Again, very different energies to have in the natal chart, and my Libra moon. So if you have good aspects with your sun, moon, and your rising, that's also very fortunate, I would say. It just implies that you express yourself in like a comfortable way. So it's definitely a good thing to have.
Capricorn and Sagittarius are pretty different energies, and I do feel like I embody both of them, but it's kind of interesting that my ascendant is conjunct my sun.
Yeah, you mean you, what do you mean conjunct your sun? I thought it was just with the ruler or Jupiter.
So my ascendant is at the 29th degree, and my sun is at the 6th degree, so they're like 7 degrees away from each other.
Oh, I forgot you were a super early degree Capricorn sun.
Yes.
Your first deacon Capricorn.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's actually pretty. I would say that's positive, definitely. I love it when people have their sun in the first house. So, my favorite planets to have in the first house are definitely Venus because it gives beauty, and some of the most beautiful women in the world have Venus in the first house, especially conjunct the ascendant. Just to name a few: Margot Robbie, Angelina Jolie, Marilyn Monroe, many of them. So that's a very amazing one to have if you're a woman. I also like the sun in the first house. It just gives like the star quality, center of attention, leadership, like I'm here to be in charge type of energy. And the third one would be Jupiter in the first house. Extremely fortunate placement. I cannot say enough good things about this placement, especially if it's in Sagittarius or Cancer. So I love that. Some of the harder ones are Pluto in the first house for sure. You can scare everyone away, and it's like a very intense type of uh, aura, where their aura is so penetrating that it can like make people feel uncomfortable. Do you know anyone with Pluto in the first?
Yes. Yes. So my
Have that?
brother, my brother is a Sagittarius rising and a Capricorn sun just like me. He has his Pluto and Sagittarius in the first house. I don't think he pushes people away. I think he's magnetic.
So my sister has it, and she has Pluto in the first house in Scorpio.
That's a little bit more of an intimidating energy.
It's more of an intimidating energy, and what I find is you either love them or hate them. With Pluto in the first house. But I kind of feel like in Sagittarius, it would be more magnetic because of the
Yes.
Sagittarius for sure. That they'd probably have people getting obsessed with them constantly.
Yeah. And he is very magnetic. He's very charming. I think he has a lot of ups and downs emotionally. He's very expressive, and I think that's due to Pluto.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
he's very charming.
Yeah, it's got to be the Sagittarius too.
Yes.
Pluto and Sagittarius would be way easier to have in the first house. If like for a Sagittarius rising, then Scorpio with Pluto in the first house. I like Scorpio risings with Neptune in the first house. That softens up the
Hmm.
Plutonian energy. I feel like with Sagittarius rising, having Pluto in the first house, it gives them more depth.
Yes.
And another difficult one to have is Saturn in the first house. Usually, like the father really influenced their identity or their physical appearance, and if that's not the case, Saturn here can still make them like super insecure about how they look. Even when they look fine, they just have so many insecurities when it comes to their physical appearance. So that's a hard one. However, later on in life, you can kind of master it, and they can even go through like a glow up physically after their Saturn return. And sometimes they can age really well too, but they look a lot older when they're younger, and then they just start aging in reverse. So it's pretty trippy that way. And asteroids in the first house also impact your identity and the way you look very much. Like you and I both have Juno in the first
Yes.
house, and that gives baby face. Baby,
Yeah.
like just super innocent
I
and
run with it.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a fortunate one. So
Mm.
any asteroid or planet you have in your first house definitely impacts your identity and your appearance, and it just impacts you more than it would in any other house. So yeah,
I
that's
I think like Saturn and Pisces would be kind of a okay energy, like more fortunate than I don't know, like Saturn and Aries in the first house.
You mean in the first house?
Yep.
Yeah. Reason why Saturn is so hard too in the first house is because it's in detriment or in
Mm,
fall in Aries. I always forget whether it's detriment or fall, but it's so, even if it's in Pisces, it's still kind of like it's in Aries because of the first house. But I definitely think that's easier than Aries for sure.
yeah. Cause I know someone who I don't actually know their birth time, but I suspect that they're Pisces rising with Saturn in the first house because they just embody Pisces and Saturn to me so much.
That's crazy because those are such opposing energies.
Yeah. He's just so Pisces, but in such a structural, like serious way that I'm like, that man.
That's crazy. I'd be curious to meet that person because,
He's an enigma in a good
yeah,
way.
yeah, but definitely like a dichotomy there for sure.
I was in love with him for like a decade, so
You, you. That's so funny. You and your 12th house Venus and Scorpio secret
oh
obsession
no, we everyone knows about that.
when it comes to your crushes. Really, I feel like they're so secretive. Like you keep them on the down low. It's a
No, I
set.
don't. That's so not true because I be telling people. Like my Jupiter in first house has me telling,
Yeah, that's for sure. That expansive energy of Jupiter.
but I don't tell them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
It's a
you'll
secret from them unless somebody else tells them.
obsess over them like so hard and they'll never know. And that's so crazy to me because if somebody was that obsessed with me, I would want to know. Like
I would
I
rather
would,
die.
and I sometimes like I even feel like, sometimes people are obsessed with me, but I'll never know. But I'm probably just imagining it. Nobody cares.
I think everyone's in love with me.
That's so funny.
I'm like,
Uh,
yep, they're in love with me. There's another one.
Jupiter,
Is that
Jupiter.
Leo Deacon? Deacon?
Yeah, the Leo layered with Jupiter and Sagittarius and 29 degrees. I mean, geez, you've got it all there. And you have
Yeah.
like asteroids in your first house.
So many
Juno,
asteroids.
Eros, like a bunch of them.
Talent, Fama.
Yeah, all the
Um,
good.
the one I just learned yesterday, abundance or something.
Yeah, yeah, abundante, whatever.
I'm just
Um,
blessed with the good asteroids in my first house.
I have that one in my 10th house.
That's just as good.
Yeah, and honestly, create abundance by speaking and like thinking it into my existence. So in Gemini, that totally makes sense.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, first house placements, especially if they're good ones, are super fortunate. So definitely take a look at your first house. Look at the degree, the decan that it's in, and if you have any asteroids in the first house or planets, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty much who you are. That has such a big part of your identity in it with the first house. So
All right.
super.
So that's where we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, so next time we'll talk about the second house and we'll go from there.
Um, join our Discord. It's called Saturn Sirens. Follow us on TikTok. Mine is Sticks and Stones Astrology. And what's yours, Mary?
Astro Babe 89.
And join Mary's lives. She goes lives like twice a day at least. And subscribe to my YouTube. I have educational courses on there. And follow us on Spotify or YouTube. And comment. Let us know what you want to hear and if you have any
We're all,
questions and what you want to talk about.
yeah, and so we're basically all over the place, guys. So
Yes.
definitely we want to hear your feedback and we'll see you guys next time.
All right. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.